Hey, this is Sebastian from the Metal Gods Meltdown, and today I have the pleasure to be joined by
James Christian, House of Lords.
It's great to be chatting this evening. In my humble opinion, Saints and Sinners is the melodic rock album of the year, and it's definitely what we need in these dark days. It's so uplifting. How pleased are you with the feedback so far to the tracks you have released?
Well, thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. We worked hard on this record, and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into producing, writing. The members, every band member in the group was responsible for something, one way or the other, on the record. So it was a real team effort.
Can you tell our listeners what to expect on release day on the 16th of September? I already know, but...
Well, I mean, the release, like you said, the release date is September 16th. I know here in the States we'll have a little party and, kind of just get together with the people, with the exception of Johan, who is in Sweden. But we hope that their listeners, that House of Lords listeners who have been following us will appreciate that we took a little bit extra time on this one to incorporate some of the earlier versions, earlier inspirations. Every band tries to one up themselves on every record that they do, or try to improve, or maybe update their sound, try something new. This time around, I looked back at the first 3 records we did and wanted to just take a look at what it was we were doing back then that made it so popular. And I learned a lot from it. We took away a lot of the keyboard influence on the more current records. So I thought this might be the time to reintroduce that sound with what we were doing with a blend of keyboards and guitars. And that seemed to really work for us. It gave us a fresh approach and a better idea of what the record was going to sound like with the keyboards now that we had Mark Mangold on the keys, who was an amazing keyboard player.
It's absolutely brilliant. So, will you be releasing any more videos once the album's released?
Well, we've been talking about it. A lot of people have been speaking of one song in particular, and we picked "House of the Lord," and then we did a video, a lyric video for "Saints and Sinners." But everyone is really hot on "Roll Like Thunder," so we're thinking, and even the label is thinking, that it might be a good idea to do something with that song and give it some more momentum. But right now, the album is getting the momentum it needs from word of mouth. It's unbelievable how many people. We're already over 110,000 views on the House of the Lord, and that's only been out for like a week and a half.
Yeah, that's my favorite track.
It's a lot of views, considering. The majority of our views would be more in the 50s and the 60s, so it has doubled. Yeah. And that's we're talking about when it's been out for a year and a half, 2 years. So I'm expecting this one to triple in viewership.
I reckon it will, absolutely. Okay, yeah. So next question then is, I'm a big fan of album covers. Which one from your 11 albums is your favourite cover?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think I would go with the second one, which was Sahara. There was just so much about that cover that I loved. One being that sword was a real, in other words, they didn't take a picture of a sword or do like a graphic design of a sword. The guy that did the photos was Glenn Wexler, who did everything for Geffen and a lot of the other major acts. So at that time, he wanted to have a sword built. So he had the sword custom built, and he photographed it. So it was just so amazing to watch how that cover came to life. The swords existed for many years. I had on my wall, loaned it to someone else, just because they loved the sword so much and broke it.
Never.
So no, it's because it was not made of the headstock was not made of metal. It was more like a clay.
Right.
If you know what I mean, clay, yeah. And then painted.
You've been with Frontiers a long time. I think it's over 11 years, isn't it? How pleased are you with their input over the years?
Well, I mean, let's put it this way: melodic rock has a small community that's really, the music players, I would say, and they pretty much have that locked up. I mean, if you go anywhere else, you're not going to get the attention you need because they know how to market what they're doing. Now, you can't really go further out of the little circle because that's where melodic is right now. Melodic rock has its own universe, and that's who we have to appeal to. I would love to go outside of those realms, but if I did, there wouldn't be on a Frontiers label because that's not what they do. But for melodic rock, they are the people to go to.
Absolutely. So, what are your plans for tour and festivals, and are there hopes to get over to Europe?
This time around, we've already got one festival in Wales, England, at the Hard Rock Hell, and we're going to make that the first gig. And so we're going to get over, have a few days to rehearse, because this is not a whole new band, but we've got Johan on drums. Who we've never done a whole set with Johan, just the music from Saints and Sinners. And then I have Mark Mangold, who doesn't travel without his keyboards. So that's another challenge because it is like, half of a van putting all that stuff in there. So we have some work to do. And we talked about having keyboards there, but he's got some custom things. And the B3 that he has in particular has been rewired and made to sound just like, like no other B3. So we have to use that equipment. So there's a lot of so it's going to have to be, if we play any clubs or, smaller venues, it's going to have to make sense for us. So we're shooting for bigger festivals and places like Hard Rock Hell or Sweden Rock, things like that.
Brilliant. So obviously with such a wide and varied set list, it's going to be difficult, isn't it, to choose which tracks to play when you do play Hard Rock Hell? This is the first time it will be, because all the other times I kind of knew that the first three records are what people go to see because they're familiar. They've heard all those songs so many times on the radio. Can't Buy My Way Home still gets played daily here in the United States. So, and in Europe also, because I know from the royalties I get from performance royalties that it's still getting a lot of airplay in Europe. So, but this album, I would love to do at least 6 of the songs, along with what we do in the rest of the set, which is going to be a challenge. Yeah, that'd be amazing. So,
yeah.
Can you tell me what has been the most memorable show you've ever played with House of Lords? I know there's been many, but... well, there was one incredibly memorable show, which was in Germany. I believe it was Berlin, and we played with Ozzy Osbourne. And there was a couple of other major acts, but Ozzy, because back then, I was a fan, and that's the one I remembered. And I remembered that it was, I think, my fifth or sixth gig with House of Lords, and I couldn't believe the amount of people that were in that room. So it was mesmerizing. I totally got off on it. I was not afraid once I was out there. The crowd was amazing, and the atmosphere, the vibe, meeting and working with Ozzy was all just a dream come true for me. Glad you started out in the music industry when you did, rather than today's fast world.
Absolutely. It's like, it's like day and night. When we started, there was not what I would say a pecking order, but we all had to sort of say pay our dues. We started out in clubs. We got our feet wet doing that. Then we started writing crappy songs that we wanted them to be great, but they were, pretty crappy in the beginning. But you learn to write, you learn to perform, you learn what works live, and then you go after the record deal. That's the holy grail right there. And it was a process that, you had to do showcases. You had to be seen. There had to be a buzz. And fast forward to 2022, you basically have to have a computer and a software program, and you can put out a record. And listen, I'm happy for everyone that can do it. I just know that I kind of preferred the way we did it, because it left it where there were fewer people, but when you got something, it really meant something.
Yeah, totally. Can agree more. So I want to ask you back about vinyl again. So do you have a big vinyl collection, and which is your most precious vinyl album?
I don't really have a big vinyl collection, I have to be honest. My wife Robin did.
Right.
And she still does, but we don't really ever listen to it. But she just has it because of all the years she was also in the music business. I basically CDs and cassettes, and some of I would say my number one cassette or CD is Night at the Opera. I mean, it's just one of my favorite albums of all time, and probably one of my favorite groups. I mean, Zeppelin was the band I grew up with, and so I learned their songs, and I know their history very well. So I only had a few. There weren't many. I was playing in cover bands, so I was doing everybody's music: Beatles, Zeppelin, Journey. There were just so many of them and so many to choose from. There was a great era. I mean, the time before I actually got a record deal and started playing music, I started when I was 16 and didn't get my first record deal till I was 30. Wow. So between that time, there was a lot of dues paying and a lot of knocking on doors, and that's a whole nother story. But the records I listened to were the same ones that I played live.
Real. Okay, if one of the songs from Saints and Sinners could appear on a soundtrack, film or TV series, which one would you choose?
For soundtrack, Road Warrior would go good for any biker movie, because it's about speed. When you listen to the song and the tempo, it literally makes you want to drive as fast as you can or ride as fast as you can. I played it in my car one day, and I was listening, and I heard the whole full mix, and I literally was speeding because I thought, wow, this is driving. I mean, to me, it's like the Born to Be Wild of 2022. And that, not to say it was Born to Be Wild, but it reminds me of that feeling I got. That song really could be in any movie. And another one is a ballad called Avalanche, which, in movies, there's always that ballad song or that's in the background playing when there's a broken heart or a man or a woman who's lost and trying to find their way. That would be the perfect song as well.
Excellent. All right, so next one then. Can you tell me the most outrageous thing you've ever done in the name of rock and roll? Or are you not allowed?
Well, I've done a lot of outrageous. I mean, I wouldn't want to ever put that out there. I've done some dumb things, so I guess I could go there. I in the beginning of the first month of my tour, I couldn't get the cities right, and so there was a time that and we were touring with Cheap Trick at the time, and I would be in Cleveland and I'd say, "How you doing, Cincinnati?" So this happened a few times, and at that point, we were playing Chicago, we were playing Illinois, somewhere in Illinois. I can't remember what the name, Rockford, I think it was, and it was Rick Nielsen's hometown, and they put a big sign behind me that said, "James, you're in Rockford, Illinois." So it was pretty funny because when it came, it actually was part of this House of Lords sign.
Love it. So can you give us 4 words to describe Saints and Sinners?
The album, I would probably describe it as a part of the first album, the second album, and the rest here in 2022. I tried to meld the two together. When I say I mean myself, Jimmy Bell, Mark Mangold, and then Johan on drums. The combination really, really worked well. I can't say that it happened overnight, because it didn't. We tried a few drummers, we tried different keyboard players, but it worked out with Mark Mangold because he came from the same place. He worked with people that like Michael Bolton, who I grew up with, or we played in the same clubs at that time, so we kind of had that same love of the same music. This is before he went Blue-Eyed Soul, and he was doing more like Blackjack and stuff like that. So Mark was just, he stepped in, and I told him what kind of key sounds I was looking for. And after 3 songs were written, 3 of which he didn't use, he came up with the idea for House of the Lord. And when I heard it, I went, oh my God, you nailed it. This is it. This is what I want, for the theme of the record to be like. Every song doesn't have to be like House of the Lord, but that approach. So that was the benchmark for the rest of the album. I wanted it to have keys and guitars not fighting against each other, but being very complementary to each other and still keeping the sound heavy.
I want to thank you so much for your time. Do you have any final words for your fans, our listeners and viewers?
Well, only that to pick up the new Saints and Sinners record. Please look out for us. If we're playing at a venue near you, come out and see us. I'd love to see you. You can come up to me and say hello. We'll take photos. We'll talk about old times if we know each other. And if we don't, we'll get to know each other.